For more than 50 years, millions of television viewers have heard this voice. You probably know the words, you probably know the show, and you may even find yourself singing along the moment you hear, "Well, we're moving on up." But do you know the woman behind the voice? Because she wasn't just a studio singer hired to perform a television theme song. In fact, you've probably seen her hundreds of times on another legendary sitcom, and even more surprising, she helped write the song herself. This is the story of one of the greatest television theme songs ever recorded, "Movin' On Up," the unforgettable theme from the Jeffersons, and the remarkable woman behind it. Her name was JA'NET DuBOIS. Yes, Willona Woods from Good Times, the woman who walked into the Evans family's apartment week after week with her fashionable clothes, quick wit, and unforgettable personality, was also the powerful voice welcoming millions of Americans into George and Louise Jefferson's deluxe apartment in the sky. But there is another part of this story that makes "Movin' On Up" even more meaningful. The song wasn't simply about George Jefferson becoming successful. Behind those joyful gospel-inspired vocals was a story of ambition, struggle, family, and the dream of achieving something better. And once you know the story behind it, you may never hear the Jeffersons theme song the same way again. The Jeffersons premiered on CBS on January 18th, 1975. But George and Louise Jefferson's story had begun years earlier on another groundbreaking television series, All in the Family. Louise Jefferson, played by Isabel Sanford, appeared first. George Jefferson was initially talked about before viewers finally met him, with Sherman Hemsley eventually taking on the role that would make him a television legend. George was ambitious, outspoken, proud, and determined to succeed, and succeed he did. His growing dry cleaning business eventually changed the Jefferson family's financial circumstances dramatically. By 1975, George and Louise were ready to leave Queens behind. Their destination, Manhattan's East Side, a luxury apartment, a completely different lifestyle. They were quite literally moving on up, and television producer Norman Lear needed a song that could tell that entire story before an episode even began. That is where JA'NET DuBOIS entered the picture, and the story of how she became involved begins with DuBois wanting the people around her to recognize that she could do much more than act. By the time the Jeffersons premiered, DuBois was appearing as the funny, fashionable, outspoken Willona Woods on Good Times, another enormously popular sitcom associated with Norman Lear's television productions. For generations of viewers, Willona would become DuBois's defining role. She was Florida Evans's best friend and neighbor, and she could walk into the Evans apartment and immediately change the energy of a scene. But acting was only one part of JA'NET DuBois's talent. She was also a singer, songwriter, and performer. Years later, DuBois recalled in an interview with Jet magazine that she had approached Norman Lear because she wanted opportunities to demonstrate more of her abilities. Lear had something in mind. He was developing a new television series about a successful dry cleaner. He suggested that DuBois try writing the theme song. Think about that for a moment. One of the most recognizable television themes ever created began, in part, because an actress wanted the opportunity to show that she could do more. But there was a problem. DuBois didn't immediately know what to write. She reportedly had only limited information about the new series, and creating the right song wasn't automatic. Then the inspiration became personal. According to DuBois' daughter, Keisha Gupta Fields, her mother had made a promise concerning her own mother. If JA'NET became successful enough, she wanted to give her mother a better life. She wanted her mother to experience comfort, security, and some of the rewards that could come after years of struggle. Her daughter later described Movin' On Up as essentially a gift to her mother. And suddenly the idea of moving upward wasn't merely the story of a fictional television family. JA'NET DuBois understood the feeling behind it. She understood wanting something better for the people you loved. She understood ambition. She understood struggle. And she understood the satisfaction of finally reaching a place that once seemed far away. That personal emotion became part of the heart of Movin' On Up. DuBois wasn't the only songwriter credited on the song. Her co-writer was Jeff Barry, and his name was already associated with an extraordinary chapter of American popular music. Barry had been involved in creating some of the biggest pop records of the 1960s. Working with Ellie Greenwich and other collaborators, his songwriting credits were associated with classics including Be My Baby, Da Do Ron Ron, Chapel of Love, and Leader of the Pack. He also helped create Sugar Sugar for the Archies and co-wrote the Olivia Newton-John hit I Honestly Love You. Barry would eventually be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, so Movin On Up brought together two very different strengths. Jeff Barry brought tremendous pop songwriting experience. JA'NET DuBOIS brought her voice, her perspective, and an emotional connection to what moving upward could mean. And then there was the sound. Movin On Up didn't sound like an ordinary television theme. It sounded like a celebration. From the opening moments, the song carries the unmistakable influence and energy of gospel music. The piano, the hand claps, the backing voices, the call and response feeling, and above everything else, JA'NET DuBois's powerful lead vocal. It almost sounds as though someone has walked into church with some very good news, and in a way, that is exactly what the song represents. George and Louise Jefferson have made it. They aren't hoping that someday their lives will improve. They have already climbed the ladder. This is the celebration after the struggle, and that gospel-inspired sound gives their success the feeling of a testimony. The backing vocals add to that feeling, with singer Orrin Waters also associated with the performance of the theme. But what makes Movin On Up especially brilliant is that the song doesn't merely create a mood. It tells us the entire premise of the Jeffersons. In less than a minute, we understand that this couple has struggled, they've worked, they've succeeded, and now they are enjoying the rewards. They have finally gotten what the song famously calls a piece of the pie. Even the humorous references to everyday household life help tell us that George and Louise are entering a different world. They have moved beyond the circumstances they once knew. And George's success didn't come from winning the lottery or suddenly inheriting a fortune. He was an entrepreneur. George built a successful dry cleaning business that expanded into multiple locations. His success changed the Jefferson family's economic position. That matters because of what American television audiences were seeing in 1975. Here was a black businessman with money. A black family living in an expensive Manhattan apartment. George and Louise had a maid. They had access to comforts that television had rarely shown black families enjoying. And George Jefferson wasn't embarrassed about any of it. Quite the opposite. George was enormously proud of what he had accomplished. The theme song shared that pride. It didn't whisper about prosperity. It celebrated it. And every week before George delivered one of his famous lines, before Florence gave George one of her hilarious comebacks, and before Louise tried to keep peace in the apartment, audiences were reminded how the Jeffersons got there. The opening credits and theme song worked together almost like a miniature movie. The Jeffersons were leaving one chapter behind and beginning another. A viewer didn't need to know everything that had happened on All in the Family. The song told you what you needed to understand. These people had worked their way upward. Their circumstances had changed, and they were going to enjoy it. There is also an extraordinary connection here between two of the most important black sitcoms of the 1970s. While television audiences were watching JA'NET DuBois portray Willona Woods on Good Times, they were also hearing her voice at the beginning of The Jeffersons. Think about how remarkable that is. On one legendary television series, audiences saw her. On another legendary television series, audiences heard her. The same woman became part of the identity of two shows that would eventually be recognized as landmarks of black television history. And generations of viewers watched both programs without necessarily realizing the connection. The Jeffersons went on to become one of television's longest-running sitcoms of its era. The series remained on CBS from 1975 until 1985. lasting 11 seasons and producing more than 250 episodes. Sherman Hemsley turned George Jefferson into one of the most recognizable characters in television history. Isabel Sanford's portrayal of Louise Jefferson also made history. In 1981, Sanford became the first Black woman to win the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, and the Jeffersons wasn't afraid to tackle serious subjects. Behind the laughter, the program addressed race, class, prejudice, interracial marriage, business, family relationships, and changing attitudes in American society. One particularly significant part of the series was the presence of Tom and Helen Willis, an interracial married couple living in the same building. Their relationship allowed the program to explore race and interracial marriage through comedy at a time when those conversations could still generate controversy on American television. The Jeffersons could make audiences laugh while also putting subjects in front of viewers that primetime television had often avoided. And through all those years, Movin On Up remained the perfect announcement that the Jefferson family was about to enter your living room. Eventually, the song became bigger than the television show itself. The phrase "moving on up" became part of popular culture. People used it to describe getting a promotion, buying a better home, starting a successful business, improving their circumstances, or simply reaching another level in life. You didn't necessarily have to watch the Jeffersons to understand the reference. That is an extraordinary accomplishment for a television theme song. There was even life form Movin' On Up outside the original television recording. Sammy Davis Jr. and the Mike Curb congregation recorded their own full-length version of the song. Over the years, the theme has also been referenced, parodied, covered, and sampled, further demonstrating how deeply it became embedded in American popular culture. But perhaps the most important legacy belongs to the woman whose voice made the original television theme unforgettable. JA'NET DuBOIS' career extended far beyond Willona Woods. She worked in theater, television, film, music, and voice acting. She would later win Emmy Awards for her voice work on the animated series, The PJs. She was also associated with the establishment of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival, helping support and celebrate Black filmmakers and artists. JA'NET DuBOIS died in February of 2020, but consider the extraordinary legacy she left behind. For countless viewers, seeing her face immediately brings back memories of Willona walking into the Evans family's apartment on Good Times. But even when JA'NET DuBOIS wasn't physically appearing on the screen, her voice was helping introduce another iconic Black television family. Week after week, season after season, for 11 seasons, her voice announced that George and Louise Jefferson had made it. And perhaps that is why Movin' On Up still feels so joyful more than half a century later. It isn't simply a song about having money. It is about progress. It is about finally experiencing the rewards of hard work. It is about remembering where you came from while celebrating how far you've traveled. And behind that fictional story was a songwriter who understood the desire to give the people she loved something better. The next time you hear the opening notes of the Jeffersons, listen a little differently. Don't hear it simply as George and Wheezy heading toward that deluxe apartment in the sky. Hear JA'NET DuBOIS, hear the gospel influence, hear the celebration, hear a daughter who dreamed of giving her own mother a better life. And remember the remarkable woman connecting two legendary chapters of television history. On Good Times, America knew her as Willona Woods. On The Jeffersons, America heard her voice. And together with Jeff Barry, JA'NET DuBOIS helped create something that television audiences are still singing more than 50 years later. One actress, one songwriter, one unforgettable voice, and one television theme song that perfectly captured the feeling of finally getting your piece of the pie. If you enjoyed learning the story behind this classic television theme, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss more stories celebrating the people, music, television shows, and unforgettable moments that helped shape Black entertainment history. And before you go, tell us in the comments, did you already know that JA'NET DuBOIS, our beloved Willona from Good Times, sang and co-wrote the theme song to The Jeffersons? And what classic television theme song should we uncover the story behind next?